raw randomness can feel horrible. This is a hint from the 2023 indie game Moselina. The game is described from the developers as a hostile interpretation of the immersive simulator, where nothing is planned and everything works. The gameplay loop is simple. You are given 9 out of the 24 total tools at random. You are then presented with 9 randomly selected levels out of several level packs. One having a spike ball to avoid, and one a turtle to protect. Each level's goal is to collect all the fruits, then get back to the portal, all of which can appear in multiple predetermined spots randomly. Once you have completed 8 out of the 9 levels, the final level will be given additions to both sides of the stage, randomly of course, and 3 more tools are given in boxes nearby. The big level is a boss fight in a sense, but instead of some grand reward for overcoming a sometimes frustratingly difficult challenge, you get this. It's empty and open and so beautiful. It crashes into that deep sense of introspection the whole game has, the thing that's not talked about nearly as much as it should be. Now obviously, this game formula leads to, as is professionally known, some slick shit. There are all kinds of weird stuff you can do, as all of the tools interact with each other and the environment in mostly entirely unintended ways. Like shooting a spear at a fruit so its weight drags down to the bottom of the screen to collect it. Or jumping off the little pellet fish shoots out to jump across large gaps. But more importantly, it means that sometimes, no matter what, a round is completely impossible. Maybe the fruits are too far away, or the portal is in the middle of nowhere, or you don't have the right tools to get past a technical section. In this situation, you have no choice but to restart, and you are given 9 new tools and 9 new levels. This is the consequence to raw randomness. Games that have random elements aren't always truthful about the luck-based nature of the gameplay. This can be both helpful for the player or harmful. Slots are a game entirely composed of random numbers. There's absolutely no skill that goes into it. You just buy all the lines, spin the reels, and you hope you'll come away with more than you sat down with. Slots claim randomness. The anyone can win mentality of the slots leads to their appeal. You might just get lucky and get the mega jackpot. Except you won't. Now, sure, people do get big payouts from time to time, but that's just advertising. For every person that gets a $50,000 payout, there are literally millions that lose everything. Did you know that slots have no legal precedent to pay out at all? Contrary to popular belief, at least in Nevada, only the random number generator is mandated to be truly random, but what is done with the output is up to the manufacturer. I would call this some kind of loophole, a way for the manufacturers to get around the rules, but the rules simply aren't there to be worked around. Slots are the most profitable part of any casino. That's why there's 3,500 slot machines at the MGM Grand, while only having 165 table games. Baldur's Gate 3, though, no spoilers, I promise, has a system called Karmic Dice. This is an option you can turn on and off, though it defaults on. What Karmic Dice do is reduce fail and success streaks, though it seems to favor successful rolls. According to this incredibly meticulous Reddit post made by a person who did 500 attack rolls with Karmic Dice both on and off on all 3 difficulties, on the hardest difficulty, the odds of rolling an 11 to 20 is 80.2%, happening 401 times out of the 500. The Karmic Dice are an example of helpful skewed randomness, giving the player a more enjoyable experience. The Game Receiver 2 is that of a gun simulator. Every operation of a firearm, no matter how mundane, has its own keybind, meaning reloading requires 5 separate actions. Unloading the firearm, putting the empty magazine away or throwing it on the ground, taking a new magazine out from your inventory, inserting it into the firearm, and releasing the slide lock to put a bullet in the chamber, and only then you can fire. Though occasionally, instead of getting the intense flash and bang of a bullet exiting the chamber, you get a... There are 5 main ways an automatic gun can malfunction. failure to feed, failure to fire, failure to enter battery, failure to eject, more commonly known as stovepiping, and double feeding. A failure to feed is self-explanatory. Instead of a round loading into the chamber when the gun's slide moves forward, it stays in the magazine. This can be fixed by simply tapping the magazine to make sure it's seated correctly and then racking the gun. This is called a tap and rack. A failure to fire is similar. Instead of a round firing when struck, it instead does absolutely nothing. A tap and rack is all that's needed to clear the dud. A failure to enter battery happens when the slide of a gun doesn't fully engage, instead getting stuck due to tight tolerances or loose debris caught in the slide mechanism. This can be cleared by tapping the back of the slide to move it in place. A stovepipe is when an ejected cartridge gets stuck in the slide after ejecting. This usually happens if you are limp wristing the gun, or not giving a stable platform for the gun's recoil. This can be cleared with a simple tap and rack. A double feed is the most complicated malfunction. It happens when the weapon's extractor doesn't get a good grip of the spent casing, and another bullet is pushed into the back of the round already in the chamber. This is cleared by first holding the slide back, using the lock switch to hold it, yanking out the magazine, then racking the gun a few times to make sure both rounds are extracted out of the gun. Then putting the magazine back in and giving it a tap and rack for good measure. Jesus fucking Christ. All of these malfunctions have a chance to occur with every pull of the trigger, regardless of the situation, and just a second of having to recognize and clear it can be the separation between life and death. Some guns have a higher chance of some malfunctions than others. The Hi-Point C9 Yeet Cannon, I am not kidding about that name, is a cheap, mostly plastic gun, which leads to large amounts of issues, while a more robust gun like the Browning M1911 has a much lower chance, but no gun is ever safe. Unlike other random mechanics though, a malfunction in receiver isn't an instant death sentence. If you are prepared and have good reflexes, you can get back into cover quickly and clear it. The luck-based mechanics are neither helpful or harmful. It is true, raw randomness. Undertale is fucking weird. Throughout the game, you call a talking goat mother, meet a skeleton that is both funny and threatening, a fish that wants to murder you, gay people, dinosaur with social anxiety, evil flower, this thing. But if you aren't super into Undertale, you would wonder why I'm bringing it up in a video about random chance. It's a pretty linear game with only 3 endings, none of which have a random chance of happening. But under a surface, there's a mechanic called fun values. This is a hidden mechanic in the game where a number is chosen between 1 and 100 every reset, and according to the number selected, some otherwise completely hidden interactions will become available, and many of those have to do with W.D. Gaster. If you don't already know who W.D. Gaster is, it doesn't really matter. This video would be an hour long if I even attempted to explain who he is. All you need to know is that he is only referenced in the game through random events, usually because of the fun value. For example, if your fun value is 66, this random hallway pops up where it's seen otherwise, and there's an additional 10% chance for a door to appear in this hallway, and through that door, there's a thing who's widely theorized to be Gaster. That is a 1 in 1,000 chance every reset you take to see him. I've played through Undertale about 10 times now, and I've never encountered Gaster, nor many of the other events that happen with the right fun value. Some are even exclusive to the Switch version of the game. Point is, you can play this game 100 times and not experience half of what only the fun values have to offer, and in that way, it's a random mechanic made to be exploited. Toby Fox was already very aware that people were going to go into the game files to try and find secrets. The fun values wouldn't have been found out without going through the files, and I wouldn't have the exact odds of each event without people snooping. It's my opinion that he put the arbitrary rules for the fun values for people to look through the code to find, the randomness not adequate for the fanbase. Team Fortress 2 is one of the first, and one of the best, extremely popular hero shooters. It's been meticulously designed to ensure that every fight is fair and consistent. In TF2, game knowledge can be just as important as aiming or positioning. Being able to know what health your opponent has, how much damage you can do to them, and how much they can do to you. This all happens in seconds, no fight going on much longer than 10. Like here, I'm running down the battlements as a pyro, and I notice a guillotine just missed me, so I know I'm about to fight a scout. Off the top of my head, I know that the scout has 125 max health, so I can set him on fire, then hit him with a flare, which when used on a burning target, deals a guaranteed crit. And I can do this before he can get 2 meat shots on me to kill me. So I turn around and... oh. The choice to make a mechanic that gives you an instant kill at absolute random in a game that favors knowledge of its many intricacies is a frustrating one, on both sides of the crit. When you get a crit, you're cheated out of a good fight, win or lose. Side note, that clip of me getting killed by a crit took me 2 fucking hours to get. For whatever reason, when I want to die by a crit, it doesn't happen. Fuck. So, obviously, luck doesn't fit everywhere, and I'm not claiming it should always be used. It's not bad to have leniency with randomness, or even to not have it at all. Imagine if a competitive game like Smash Bros. Ultimate had a mechanic like, I don't know, a random chance to fall on your ass, so you need to get up before you can do anything. Wouldn't that suck? Like randomly being combo fodder, a punishment for walking. Okay, you probably know where I'm going with this. The third game in the Smash Bros. Series, Brawl, has this mechanic, and it is by far the most hated game by the competitive community, because sometimes raw randomness can feel terrible. So if it really is that bad, with assisted random chance being much more forgiving, why not help the player? Baldur's Gate 3 was one of the best games of 2023, and it did that well, and games like TF2 are widely criticized for random mechanics. While those games do well with enhanced luck or poorly with luck in general, a game like Receiver 2 or Mosalina thrives off true, unrelenting randomness. To use the words of Bennett Foddy, the way these games treat RNG makes them real. You are never sure if the next pull of the trigger is going to be a click or a bang, and you're never quite sure if the tools given can beat each level. So when you do, it's all the more gratifying. Thank you.